Pirates won their fifth straight game. And while we should be enjoying wins, the big question I keep getting is, are they saving Charrington's job? That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. Today, before the Pirates and Cardinals send Mitch Keller and Sonny Gray to the mound to secure a sweep or prevent one, depending on which team you root for, let's talk about last night's game, what a win streak does to the trade deadline, and ultimately this GM's job security. The story of this game, really, the Cardinals went 1 for 13 with runners in scoring position and left 10 on base. That's really the key here. And 1 for 13 with runners in scoring position. So they actually did come through once, and the Pirates stopped them because Tommy Pham threw out the runner at home plate. Which, hey, great play by Tommy. Probably a poor send by the Cardinals, but they're getting desperate for runs. That's the second consecutive shutout to this Pittsburgh Pirates team. You're trying to push. You've been on the base paths the whole game long, and you're just not able to crack through. So you get frustrated and you make probably an ill-advised send, I would say. I mean, Tommy Pham's not got a complete cannon there, but if you give him like a short shot at getting an outfield assist, he's gonna get it. He has the kind of stuff, at least in that arm, that can get him an accurate throw home. And really, that's all he needed against Wilson Contreras. He's not a traditionally fast runner, and I know it has nothing to do with his foot speed, but he got hit on the hand to get on base and did not look like a guy that wanted to be on base. I mean, he looked like a guy that I think wanted the team to pull him out of that game right away, and they didn't want to replace him with their extremely, extremely slow player that they probably would have had to replace him with. So, I don't know. It was a turning point for that game. I think it was an added frustration for the Cardinals, made them press a little bit harder even. The Pirates pitched. I mean, they just pitched like crazy. Paul Skeens got in and out of jams the whole night. I mean, he would be the first to tell you this wasn't the sharpest outing he's ever had. Caleb Ferguson, 2 really strong innings, got himself into a ton of trouble in his second inning and worked his way out of it. Man, was he fired up coming off the mound. Isaac Mattson comes out and gives them another great outing. He's just been tremendous. And David Bednar, I mean, he now has the longest save streak going in the National League at 12. And he just looks unhittable. And he got himself into trouble in the 9th inning and managed to get out of it. I mean, like, the Cardinals threatened all night long, and the Pirates just never buckled. They bent, they didn't buckle. Great. The defense was killer. Spencer Horwitz, I think, had a tremendous game. First of all, underrated, before we even get to his throw home that actually saved the game late. Let's just talk about receiving the back end of that double play that IKF caught a line drive on. It looked like it took him a second to notice that he had an opportunity to get an out at first. Beautiful throw. He put it in pretty much the only place he could. And Spencer Horwitz did his very best impression of Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four, just stretching his way around that runner to make that catch to get the guy doubled off at first base. It was an incredible play by Spencer Horwitz. It took a lot of concentration and flexibility just to pull that off. Great defense there. His play late in the game, he charges in on a chopper and makes a tremendous throw home. And I mean tremendous throw home because this was going to be bang bang one way or another. But his throw was perfect. It led Davis right into the tag. There was no reach back across his body and then dive. The throw was kind of going in the direction that Davis needed to go in the first place. That makes all the difference. We're talking about a difference of a human hair as to whether this was an out or a safe call. I think the only thing that kept it from being a safe call really was the runner's hand hit the ground so hard that it bounced it back up in the air. And so he wasn't making contact with the plate when the tag actually came down. And I know that we have a love-hate relationship with replay, but I think back to like the Sid Bream slide and how his foot was probably hovering over the plate when Spanky tagged him. And you just think of what could have been if there had been replay, at the time. But regardless, that's a couple decades old, you know, complaint on my part. This game in particular, though, Pirates really had no business winning it. They cannot hit Andre Palant. I don't know what it is about him. I read the wonderful piece from Michael Castrogano on my site, Steel City Pirates, about Andre Palant. I was hoping that it would have the same effect as it did the night before when I read about how terrible the Pirates have done against that Cardinals pitcher. And unfortunately, it didn't. They had struggled against Eric Fetty, but they managed to do something last night. So I was kind of hoping there'd be a little bit more Michael magic today, just from diagnosing what Palant has done to the Pirates. But sometimes, man, you just can't see a guy. But we're talking about different sets of players struggling. It's about the uniform now. He also, I think, enjoys pitching at PNC Park. That's something that I think we probably discount a lot, despite the fact that the Pirates, even with their bad record, have a winning record at home. Other teams' pitchers like coming to pitch at PNC Park too. It's a very fair venue for pitchers. So the game itself, it was uneventful, but it was eventful. You can take a defensive battle or a pitching battle. Last thing I want to say on this, because the big thing that people kept talking about really was like, oh, we won't score runs for Paul Skeens. That's the problem. He's got to be so mad. He's got to be, I invite you all to watch the post game reports, and you don't have to stay up extra late for it and wait for Pittsburgh Sportsnet to put them on. Just the next morning, after you're done listening to this podcast or whatever podcast you like to listen to talk about the game, just head over to MLB.com, check out like some of the post game reports from guys, especially the ones that you're deciding what they feel for them, like Paul Skeens. I mean, he talked a lot about last night's game, but he talked more about what he needed to do and how happy he was that they got a team win and how much they are improving as a team and how much better they are from last year and where he is on innings versus where he was last year, and explaining himself why he might be getting a little more tired or wearing down. Paul Skeens is not thinking about what you think Paul Skeens is thinking about. Paul Skeens wants to win. This team has won 5 straight. He has no complaints when the team's winning 5 straight. Would he like wins? Yes. But Paul Skeens tossed a scoreless outing, and he knew himself that he got himself to the point where he needed pulled out of that game. He talked about getting into trouble. He talked about having pitchers being taken that shouldn't have been. He talked about being able to put guys away and needing to be able to do it faster. He understands all of it. Does he want them to score runs for him? Sure, he does. But it's not the focus in life that a lot of you want to make it into. It's not the only thing he thinks about. He thinks about winning. That's what his team did. And that's where he stops being the bitter guy you want him to be. He's just not. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I think we need to talk about maybe what a win streak like this, or even let's say they continue it on into the All-Star break. What does that do to the trade deadline? Does it change anything? Should we be talking a little different? Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Hey, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Don't miss anything that we do here. That's the best way to do so. Social media is constantly clamping down on what links we can put on posts and which ones are going to get taken down and which ones are going to get ramped down. Don't deal with it. Subscribe, and you're going to get nothing but a notification. Nobody's going to send you some email and ask you to get into your computer or something. We're not going to send you any special promos. Just subscribe so you don't miss stuff. That's it. Do it for yourself. Let's talk about trade suggestions here. We've been talking a lot about guys we could trade, and some of us have gotten pretty aggressive. In fact, I think you've seen a lot of reports from people like Bob Nightingale and Ken Rosenberg and all Rosenthal. Sorry, you see those reports all the time, and all the Pirates could trade anybody. The only guy they're not interested in trading is Paul Skeens right now. Well, I told you the other day, like, not so much, like, I don't really believe that that's the way. I wrote about this in 5 Thoughts on Monday, actually. I don't think it's nearly that drastic with this team. I think there's an overall culture that Ben Cherington has promoted throughout his time here, in that he will listen on anyone for any kind of package from any team. He's going to listen. He's going to engage. He's going to see what they have. He's going to build intel based on it. Like, let's say a team that you have no intention of trading with, and I'm not pretending to know. I'm just saying a team that I wouldn't have any intention to trade with, like the Cubs. Let's say the Cubs come to you and they offer their very top prospect and 2 other pieces for Mitch Keller. Well, a couple things from that. Now that there is a way that in the Cubs' mind, their number one prospect is available. They're okay with moving him at some point. That's helpful information should you ever really want him. Right away, this is a possibility. Maybe I can give you a different piece that gets me that. And you also kind of understand how they value Mitch Keller. And when you understand how they value Mitch Keller, you understand a little bit more about how other teams might value Mitch Keller. And if they don't value Mitch Keller the way that the Cubs do and say it's less, well, you've got that Cubs kind of conversation in your back pocket. You at least know that's out there. You at least know the level to which someone would go to try to get this player. So you're not going to take a lesser deal because you know that better exists out there. It's not always about closing a deal. Sometimes it's about getting intel for a future deal. Sometimes it's just about understanding the climate, understanding what's valuable to people, understanding what you value that you may not have even thought you could have pried away. Does this winning streak change anything? Boy, it really shouldn't. It really shouldn't. They're still in the bottom of the standings. In fact, if you want to just talk about like the generic nature of trying to crawl up the National League standings a little bit, well, they picked a funny time to have this win streak because Miami is on a 6-game win streak. So they're doing the same exact thing, and they're keeping themselves ever so slightly right above the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Atlanta Braves have not fully recovered from the start of their season. They may not. It'd be hard for me to fathom a team with that much talent not getting back to 500, but right now they're only a couple games better than the Pirates. I mean, they're right there, just like Baltimore is in the American League. That's actually something that I think is going to make this trade deadline interesting. A couple of the teams that are down near the bottom of the standings, I don't know, are going to be big sellers at this deadline. Like, if you think about Miami and where they are, well, they're a young team. They've already traded off just about everyone. The only couple players they have left they could move are like Edward Cabrera and, I'm sure there's some bullpen guys and whatnot. I'm not pretending to be intimately involved, but Sandy Alcantara is the other one that you kept getting brought up that was going to be moved for sure. I suppose they still could do that, or they could look at this good young core that they've kind of started to build with some interesting bats, and they're all young and controllable. And they could think, yeah, you know what? Maybe we're done with this. Maybe we're just going to keep moving now. Maybe we hold on to Sandy. Maybe we hold on to Edward. Or maybe they think this is the best Edward's ever looked and he never stays healthy. Let's move him while we can. I think there's going to be conversations like that in Miami. Either way, they don't have the players to have a fire sale. You're not going to trade off like the Norbies and Stowers and whatnot that you just got. You're not going to trade off Xavier Edwards yet. He's just a youngster just getting started, just starting to show who he is. That's Miami. But I'm saying that because when teams like that are in the bottom dwelling with you aren't looking to make those big moves, well, it adds pressure to some of the teams that might. Like the Pirates have, because they actually played a little bit in free agency. I know not enough, but compared to Miami, who didn't get anybody they didn't sign anybody this offseason. So they don't have any rentals to sell off. The Pirates have a ton of them. So the Pirates are in a different situation. The situation with those rentals doesn't change regardless of what you're doing here. Now, like, let's say Ben Cherington has a spot here. He has a shot to keep his job. I could see that potentially wanting to change his mind about what to do. He may not be as interested in moving on from somebody like an Andrew Heaney who's doing well for you. But he may not get that choice either. We're going to spend a lot of time in the third segment specifically talking about the GM's hot seat and what this streak is doing to that. But the trade deadline, I don't think mentality-wise we can have that conversation yet. At 5 games in a row, it's nice, right? But this team is still well under 500. They're still well towards the bottom of the standings. They're still really probably a little bit beyond hope to even climb to like as high as 4th or 3rd in their own division this year. Changes need to come. I don't see any way to avoid that, and I feel like trades are going to be that main mechanism. I just don't think a winning streak like this changes anything. If they take it on into the All-Star game, let's just go crazy and just assume they win the rest of their games heading into the All-Star break. Okay, I mean, maybe then we have to start having a conversation because then you're starting to talk about getting within shouting distance of 500. But man, there's a lot of good baseball that would need to be played from here till the All-Star break to start having a talk like that. Right now, I'm just going to take the streak and be happy with it. But I will say, if it keeps going on, yeah, I think it's gonna change some things. I do. I think that it'll change some thoughts you might have had about how to proceed or some things to try to go out and do. I don't think they'll just purge their bullpen if that's the case. I think you're still gonna have to move a few, but I could see holding on to IKF. You don't have a bona fide shortstop replacement. So as valuable as I think he could be at the deadline, I suppose if the Pirates are winning enough games to threaten 500 or scare themselves into thinking that there's a way they could at least best that 76 win mark that they've stopped at the last couple of years, I suppose we could see them do something like hold on to an IKF type just because they don't want to like purposefully not reach their goal. Um, I don't know. I don't know where I sit on that. I think bottom line, I need to see a little bit more evidence before I start thinking that they shouldn't make something like that. Part of me thinks you're not going to make the wild card no matter what. So deal away. Empty the coffers. Get rid of as many of the rentals as you possibly can. Get the young kids up here. We'll take the progress that we've made with some of the younger kids, but I think there's more value in getting a good half season look at Nick York than there is holding on to IKF, even though I think he's a better player probably right now, at least. So to me, the trade deadline shouldn't change. Logically, it shouldn't change. Emotionally, if they keep winning like this, it's going to change. You're going to find a lot more conversations about, like, even the conversation that we started here about Brian Hayes being a trade candidate. Well, that's a much harder conversation if he's doing what you hope Brian Hayes can do, which is hitting around like 260. If you can get Brian Hayes hitting like 250, 260, 270 even, and it doesn't matter if the power comes with it. That coupled with his defense, that's a valuable player, more than his contract says. So you wouldn't want to trade him. You have the injury concern, which is why I initially wanted to think about trading him because that can crop up at any time. But new method for training it seems to have conquered it a bit this year. The swing change has changed some things that torqued his back in the past. Maybe this is a new Brian Hayes. I don't know. That's one like individual trade that I think could change. Mitch Keller's another one. I think he's probably your best bet at bringing back a big bat. So you might have to do that one regardless of what's going on with the team, just because you have to do it. But it's certainly not going to be a 5-game win streak that changes anything like that. Let's revisit this. Let's say they get to the All-Star break and they only lose like one more game before then. Well, you're going to have to look at the team a little bit differently than you would have if you had just continued to do what you were doing, winning a game every other day, on the way into the All-Star break. It changes things. I don't think that's where we are yet. Speaking of that, it's time to get into the GM. You ever check your bank account and wonder where all my money went? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. So the first thing that I had to hear right after we finished up the game last night, the Pirates finished the 1-0 victory over the Cardinals. The very first tweet that I got from somebody was, so is the GM still on the hot seat with this winning streak? And I thought to myself, well, that's pretty funny to even think about, really, isn't it? Like, do you let 5 games, no matter what they are, 5 games change your opinion of what has happened in 5+ years? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this is more one of those long range type hires. This is a long range type position. You don't make decisions on a general manager on whims. You don't make them on streaks. You don't make them on recency bias. You make them on overall examinations of where you are systemically. So if they're going to make a decision on Ben Cherington that, let's say, would change my mind from before this season, because you'll recall I wanted, well, maybe not from this show, but if you followed me at least before I took over Locked On Pirates, you know that I was calling for Ben Cherington to be fired last year. I wanted him gone in the off season. I thought that was the time to do it. I thought they had proven enough there. I wanted Derek Shelton gone too. And bluntly, I should also say, like, because it's not like I'm Kreskin and always right, I never would have hired Don Kelly as the replacement. I would have gone completely outside of the system and redone the entire thing. So maybe I'm right about one thing, maybe I'm wrong about another. That's what opinions are about. The GM, though, being on the hot seat should not change from something like this. If anything changes for Ben Cherington, it's probably that he made changes to the scouting system and he made changes to the development system. And at the lower levels, we're seeing dividends from both of those. There's a lot more offensive buzz going on down there than there has been. And the pitching is continuing to move along too. So it's not as though they've taken away from one to help the other. But the hitting prowess, the hitting detection, if you will, it's better. They're finding more impact, even in the international level, where you're starting to see guys come into the DSL looking a little bit better. Florentino is a great example of a guy that, you know, they just picked up, and I think some people expected that progression to take a little while, but he's already in Bradenton. That doesn't happen for all of these guys. Like we've seen, you know, Wyatt Sanford really move along, Connor Griffin. We just talked yesterday about a couple guys that were moving up the rankings, right? So if anything, I'd say you look at the lower levels and some changes that were made, and he probably gets a little bit of credit for that. And what I mean is, if you're doing one of those like those lists of pros versus cons as far as like trying to fire a guy, I try to do those things. I really do. Typically, I try to do those things before I come out with some grand pronouncement of what I want done with the guy. But I did that. And since that time, I've had to go in and alter it a little bit because I've had development, international training. I've had those things on my list of reasons to move on from Ben Cherington. I've had to at least kind of like half erase a couple of those because I believe he's fixed them. And I believe that the system overall will start to pay those dividends. I still don't think that he's aggressive enough at the major league level with trades. I think he's a prospect hugger, and often the wrong prospects are the ones he chooses to hug versus the ones that he moves on rather cavalierly. So I I have my problems with him, and it doesn't change how I feel about him being gone. But I got to be real. Is it possible that he talks this team into going one more year with him? I guess. I think it would take a heck of a lot more than, a little win streak here or there. I mean, this team would have to do something pretty freakish. Like this 5-game winning streak, we would need to be talking about like a 20-10 month, you know, um, something along those lines, like a 25-5 month, something like that that really like just flips the record on its head. That's crazy that baseball has to notice. That's maybe when you start having a conversation like this. But again, you've had 6 years to make a decision on this GM. You don't let a little stretch of games change your mind. If you plan to fire him, you're still probably firing him. If you didn't plan to fire him, you're probably still at least considering it. I just don't think like these little win streaks automatically turn it out. And the last thing I want to say on this is you should not stop yourself from enjoying wins just because it might possibly benefit Ben Cherington. Again, I called for him to be fired in the offseason. He is not somebody that I have confidence in anymore. Okay? And I would love to leave the door cracked open, and I will, because that's what I do professionally. I try to. But you as a fan, man, I said this before the season. The best thing that could happen is not that the Pirates lose enough to get Ben Cherington fired. It's that they win so much that they can't even think to do it. The very best thing that would happen would be to be successful. That's what we want, right? We're fans. You want to win. Why would I want my team to lose just so somebody can lose their job and I have to go into yet another GM that's going to be asked to do something damn near impossible by someone that isn't going to give the resources to do it? I want to win. And when they're winning, I don't care that it makes Ben Cherington temporarily look better. I really don't. And I don't think anybody should. It's reactionary to a ridiculous degree, for one thing. It's just not how teams think. Not even this one. Enjoy today's game. Let's have fun with it. And then I am, just a programming note the rest of the week, I am absolutely giving you a show on the 4th of July. I see no reason not to. And I think let's make it a special show. I want to focus on some of the Pittsburgh Pirates that served the country a little bit. I just want to go back in history and talk about their special contribution to the country as well, not just the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's all I got for you today. Let's hope the Pirates can finish off this sweep against the Cardinals. This is going to be a tough one. Tough game. Sonny Gray, Mitch Keller. Let's get after it. Let's go Bucks.